The artboard has two pane regions, one on the left by default that contains the Interactions palette, and one on the right that contains the Project, Properties, and Resource palettes. Each of these palettes, by clicking on the icon, can be undocked so they can be moved around, and with one click restored to their home. Depending on your preference, under Tools, in the Options menu, you can choose to change the workspace zoom. This value increases or decreases the size of all of the palettes to make them easier to see, or perhaps smaller to give you more room on the artboard. I'm going to increase my size a little bit to make things a little bit easier to see. When you're working with the artboard, sometimes you need a little more space. The Tab key will cause all of the palettes to be hidden to give your artboard as much space as possible. The tools are still visible on the left, and the Property Inspector is still visible, you just can't see it right now because I don't have anything selected. The Tab key also brings these controls back. The large artboard in the middle of the scene is where you're going to do most of your work. There are a few controls at the bottom to help you create elements and help get a quicker layout. I'm going to draw a rectangle on the scene for starters. You'll notice I can simply click and drag to get the rectangle the size I want, and adorners are displayed to show me the height and width so I can get the particular size I'm interested in. As soon as I release the mouse button, the editing handles are brought up so I can then resize, rotate, or do any of the other editing commands. By pressing Ctrl-Z, I can undo the edits that I just placed because I want my rectangle in the default position for now. Now I'm going to switch to the Selection tool, and when I drag the rectangle around, when I get close to the edge of the window, a pink bar is displayed for me to show that at the moment I'm now 8 pixels away from the edge of the window. When I draw another rectangle, red lines are displayed to show me when the side of one element matches the side of another. Then, after switching to the Selection tool, as I drag the rectangles closer to each other, they'll snap to a position that's 4 pixels apart. All of these tools, the snap lines, help me quickly create a layout that I'm looking for. If, for instance, I don't want those, I can always hold down the S key to temporarily disable the snap lines so they don't get in my way, and then releasing the S key re-enables them. I can also click on the enabler at the bottom to turn them on or off. By default, the padding, or the amount of space between an element and the edge of the window, is set to 8 pixels. The margins, or the amount of space between two rectangles, is set to 4 pixels. These values can be changed in the Options menu, under Tools, on the Artboard tab. I can set these values to whatever I want, or turn them on and off. Checking this button is the same functionality as checking the button on the artboard. I can also enable or disable the snap grid here, but I can change that on the artboard too. The snap grid is a more traditional overlay of an 8-pixel grid, and by clicking this button, I can enable snapping to the grid. So as I draw my rectangle, it will force the geometry to the squares. If I need to pan my artboard around, instead of switching to the Pan tool, I can also hold down the space bar to temporarily use the Pan tool to move my artboard around. The mouse wheel also allows me to scroll upward or downward, and by holding the Control key, zoom in or zoom out. The Shift key switches the mouse wheel to zooming left or right instead of up or down. Changes that I've been making on the artboard are creating new elements and setting properties on those elements. What I'm actually doing is creating and modifying a XAML document.